Welcome to Season 4 of the Lead with Coffee podcast, where we continue the journey into how you can change the culture in your business and your home through simple leadership practices. Grab a cup of coffee and get ready to join into today's conversation.
Well, welcome back to the Lead with Coffee podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something that's inside of our heads, and that's our inner voice. That voice of doubt that is always talking to you and telling you that you're not good enough, you can't do this, it's going to be too hard. And why do we have that voice, and how do we turn that around for good? And I would say that most people probably have that voice of doubt, like the default, and I don't know why it is, but I think more people than not will default when up against something that it's going to be too hard. And even if you can snap out of it quickly, there's something there. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Probably a psychologist would tell you it started in your childhood, right? It's your parents' fault. Isn't that how they all start? Hopefully our kids don't go to a counselor one day and they just say everything's your parents' fault.
Well, you know, what I did write in here, because I heard it and it was funny, it was like, it could be one of four things: trauma, drama, daddy, or mama.
Oh, right. So it always is your parents' fault. And the trauma and drama probably came from your childhood.
Pretty much.
I wonder when we lose our sense of wonder. What age do we start to go from why not to it won't work?
Yeah.
What age do we just turn off that dreaming and fearlessness and turn into cautionary, anxious people that are always thinking the worst case scenario instead of the best case scenario?
Well, and I totally think that as parents and how your parents treated you, like, you can't do that, it's going to be too hard, or it's not safe, and you can't ride your bike across the street because something, or it could be in school, you want to fit in and you're being teased because of whatever makes you different.
Yeah.
And that just sticks with you for the rest of your life. So whether it's family or just, the school, I think for all of us, there's a little of everything in there.
We're a hot mess.
Yeah. Welcome to the Hot Mess Express podcast.
I'm going to rename it for today's episode. Yeah. But I think it's probably very true. We are not psychologists. Here's the disclaimer. We are not psychologists. But our theory is that there is a season in your life and some factor that happens to you where you go from I can to I can't. And I don't know when that shift happens, but I think as we get older, we, like you said, we just default to, well, I could do that, but I don't think I'll be successful. I don't like to be in the public, or I don't like to, change. We see that a lot.
Talk in front of people,
right?
All those
like
things.
All the reasons. We can come up with a scroll of reasons why we aren't good at something.
Yeah.
But what if we tried to come up with, instead of an automatic no, to maybe? Because maybe says, I'm not sure, but there's a possibility I could do that. And then what if that maybe turned into something where you said, what is the real reason why I can't? What is my fear? What is the inner voice that I'm telling myself? What's the story I'm telling myself? Like Brené Brown likes to say, if you haven't heard that, she talks a lot about the story you tell yourself. Mm-hmm. If you're in the middle of something and you're starting to feel your energy shift and all this fear and doubt and anxiety, what is the story you're telling yourself about the situation that you're in? And 90% of it is what you're making up. It's not even real.
Well, 100%. And also, so many times we have the fear of what other people are going to think.
Yeah.
And as an adult, we have to realize it doesn't matter, number one. And the other thing is, most likely, they don't even care in the first place.
Right. They're not thinking about you.
They're not thinking about you. And so you're so afraid to give a presentation or, try something new that you're not confident that you can do. And you talk yourself out of it because you're so worried what other people are going to think about. Mm-hmm. And to shift that mindset of like, they don't care. And trust me, there are so many people out there that don't care and will go out and do, crazy things and act a fool themselves just to have fun or, just have that sense of wonder naturally. Mm-hmm. And whatever experience they had as kids where maybe that is their default, that they'll just go instead of stop.
Yeah.
That's great, but there's a balance somewhere in there. And for us that have I don't know how good I'm going to do or what people are going to think, you have to capture those thoughts. Mm-hmm. And, I know we've heard that in Scripture a lot and through church. It's like you have to, take captive of the thoughts of doubt and turn those around. Like, yeah, I can. Mm-hmm. And why couldn't I? Why am I telling myself that this isn't going to work or this isn't going to be successful? And, we talk about a lot that failure is okay, mm-hmm. and failure you're going to learn from. And by the way, you might try something and fail and have the best time of your life doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from your past experiences.
Yeah.
So if you tried something, let's say you tried public speaking and it was in front of 50 people and you just felt like you flopped. Well, the next time someone asks you to do public speaking, you're going to be a hard no because I was horrible at that. But were you really horrible? Did the people in the room tell you flopped, or did you feel like, oh, I stumbled, I was sweaty, I wasn't doing my best? But maybe your best is still better than 90% of the people in the room, and that you're going to get better as you do it more.
I can speak into this.
But I think we go out and we want, and I will let you speak into it, but I think we go out and we want to be at the top of our game.
Yep.
On everything new. And so that inner voice will tell you, don't try it because you're not going to be like so-and-so that you want to model. And by the way, it took them 40 years to turn into that, right?
Right. And so my related story is when I worked my way up for IFMA San Diego, nonprofit organization that we're part of, to be on the executive board and be president. I knew that as president, I was going to have to speak in front of people, and I was terrified. I'm not great at presentations, and my words don't always come out and flow like I want them to. But I knew that if I was going to be a president for a year, at least once a month, not only just the board meetings, but once a month, I would be in front of a crowd of 50 to 100 people that I would have to do opening remarks for or whatever. And I was terrified. Mm-hmm. And to make matters worse, I started out with everything written on paper, and I'm like, I don't want to carry this paper around. I'm just going to put everything I have on my phone in OneNote or Evernote, one of those. And the first 3 times I did that, the app crashed, and I was stuck there in front of 50 to 100 faces looking at me, waiting for me to give the updates for the chapter and all those things. And I was terrified. Talk about sweating and all those things.
Yes, you were.
It was a horrible, horrible experience. And I think maybe for some, they would have quit that day. But I stuck with it. And, I got better at it. And even those ones, people came up, oh, that was really good. I really, like your style and, the energy and all those things. And I'm like, wow, thank you, because to me, that was a train wreck.
Yeah.
So it's all perspective. I was thinking that they're all going to, I'm going to get the tomatoes thrown at me or whatever. But that's just not how it goes.
Yeah. I think the voice of doubt is just the enemy attacking. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I remember sitting there watching you and you would be shaking and everyone could see you shaking up there. But you know what it did? It showed them you were real. And everybody in the room is in that same boat at one point or another, and whatever they're doing, whether they're, running a chapter or running a business or running their department. We've all had those moments where you have to stand up and you're having a physical response that everybody can see to the stress you have inside. But now, you've come through that side of it through practice. And it took you doing it a couple of times and maybe some people in your corner saying, you're so much better if you just allow yourself and trust yourself to talk.
Right.
Because a lot of it came from trying to read it all to perfection versus being present with the people in the room and just talking. And then your energy shifted, your shoulders dropped, and you realize that public speaking is more about how do I connect with the people here versus tell them a bunch of bullets that they're not really going to remember that can go on a slide.
I didn't think you were going to say bullets.
Why? Bullet points?
No. Moving on.
BS?
Well, yeah,
Like what were
yeah,
you?
BS.
I mean, it is a bunch of BS most of the time. But,
Right.
But you know what I mean? I think that is part of that process, is that when you realize that everything, same with the podcast, it doesn't all have to be so scripted. Most of the successful episodes have come from us realizing that the dialogue we're having together is what people are engaged with, not the facts we could just list and blast out.
And it's funny because even, I haven't done public speaking or anything like that in a while. And this year, last 2 months ago, I did Adam and Jen's wedding, which I wasn't nervous about until I got up there. And then my hands were physically shaking, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Well, you're marrying someone.
Well, I know.
That's a nervous thing.
I know, but it was a small
You're
group.
responsible for their staying together now.
It was a small group, and I felt good about the whole thing, and I think it went really smooth. But literally, Jen's brother was like, dude, you were shaking. I was like, thank you. I feel much better now.
Wasn't sure you saw that.
Yeah. But, it is what it is. It is mine. I had the confidence to go and do it, but there's that body reaction of doubt.
Sure.
And it's crazy.
It's physical. And it's physical.
Yeah.
And people can see it.
But I'm okay. And I was great 5 minutes after that. And I moved on, and I would do it again. And so it's just one of those things you got to step into.
Well, it's only your second wedding. So, I think that's one of those ones where practice makes perfect. I'm sure there's a lineup of people that want Dr. Divinity to marry them now. I think that it also ties back into the episode we did with Brene Brown's Daring Greatly. Part of Daring Greatly is, how do I control my inner voice and the story I'm telling myself? And we talked a lot about being in the arena and the voices that are the resounding voices that are really influencing you. And a lot of times we think, oh, okay, it's who is in my circle of influence. And sometimes it's our voice that is the hardest, that's
Absolutely.
influencing us the most in a negative way. So I think that is just part of having time to pause to see it. If we are running a race so fast and we are not able to even see how we are responding to things, it might always be a no, and it might always be anxiety. It might always be fear, because we're never allowing ourselves to slow down enough to really realize that we are getting in our own way. We need to spend time, whatever that looks like, figuring out how to deal with the trauma, the drama, the mama,
the daddy or the mama.
The daddy or the mama, right? There's a lot of people that are sitting in therapy trying to figure out how to calm the inner voice of doubt. But I think that we have the ability outside of therapy, again, not a therapist, but outside of therapy, to go to a place that makes you calm, go to a place that makes you reflect. You can think clearly. For me, it's the beach. I can go for a walk on the beach and just listen to the waves and be present in nature. And a lot of times I can feel my energy shift, and I can realize that I maybe am not handling things the way that I normally would, or I'm not responding in a way that I'm proud of in this season of stress. And that a lot of it comes from doubt and fear and insecurity for my own future and whatever's going on in my own family. And I can bring that into work. And a lot of times it does come from the past. If you've had a negative experience, then you're going to bring that to your next relationship or your next job. If I had a bad boss before, I'm going to assume as soon as I see a red flag that's going to be the same experience. Right? And so you're just bringing in a conversation to yourself, right? And you have to, whether that's journaling or writing it down. And there was a really good practice that I don't remember where we did it. Maybe it was the Oaks, a leadership retreat, where it was, when you're having the negative thought, write down truths about that thought. So if I'm saying, I'm going to fail at this new project, let me write down 3 truths about that. And most of the time you can't even get to 3. There are not 3 truths about that. They're not 100% truths. They're fears. And you can override those fears if you realize that you're creating a narrative that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say that, there's constantly a voice in my head, whether it's thinking about, something I did wrong or something upcoming that I have to do and how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to approach it and what are my words going to be and who do I have to talk to. And it's always like, well, that one won't work. And it's, just defaults to the doubt. And I have to stop myself in those moments and say to myself, like, why do I feel that way? And what can I do to turn this into positive? And if that is, maybe I do have to write it down, or you have to write it down. But I think it's really pausing, as you were saying, and whatever that takes to do that, to realize that we have total control over our thoughts. And I think we have all heard it being said, you can't change the things that are happening around you, but you can change how you react to it or respond to it. If we're really talking our language, which is, we try not to react to anything. We try to respond, which is more well thought out. You've taken a second to understand what your position is and how you're going to, reply to whatever that is, whether it's something personal in your family, whether it's something that's happening in the world. Just taking that step back. And I think having to do that on a constant basis, or I don't know, setting yourself a reminder that when you get in that position, hey, I know what's going on here. And, talking to yourself, almost like the devil and the angel on the shoulders, back and forth, and really stopping to talk yourself out of the doubt.
Yeah, I think it can paralyze people.
Yeah.
It paralyzes you not to move.
Right.
It can paralyze you to not look for advancement in your career, advancement in your life. I think it keeps a lot of people frozen out of just not having someone to talk to about it or to pull them out of it, right? If you don't have a network of people or someone in your corner that's saying, hey, you can do this, you need to try this, just encouraging you or motivating you, find someone. No matter whatever that looks like for you, you got to find someone who can remind you of who you are and where you said you wanted to go, right? And I think that's part of that inner voice and really containing it is having someone that's gentle yet firm enough to press back into you when you're saying, I can't do this. And it's having someone say, why can't you?
Right.
Like, what is it that you're afraid of? And can you get past it? There are some circumstances people physically cannot get past. Not everyone is made for public speaking. That's a big one, right? It's like you're either a yes or a no. There's not a lot of maybes in there. But maybe you're going to start on a panel. And maybe you're going to lead a committee. And all of those things get you to the point where you can. You just have to start to take the baby steps into it, to build the confidence, to say, I'm not going to always live in doubt and fear and insecurity because I have evidence that I can. And I think people just need that. They need the evidence that they can.
And I think, if you can train yourself to do that yourself, like, yes, I can.
Right.
Because I think that once we get past that point, whether it's someone else that's helping walk us through that or we're walking through ourselves and we try it, I mean, you rarely look back and be like, oh, I should have never done that.
Right.
It's always like, that was tough. That was hard for me to get past. But now that I'm past it, it's like, that was kind of fun.
Right.
And maybe,
or I don't need to do it again. But I said yes, and I did it.
Right.
And once was enough.
It could be either one of those. But again, I think that you can have those people around you, and you should have those people around you to help motivate you. But you also have to learn to do it to yourself.
Yeah.
And again, maybe it's little baby steps. Like, I'm afraid to go do, but then you're like, okay, what's the worst possible thing that's going to happen? Am I going to die? No, it's nothing that's dangerous.
Right.
Am I going to look foolish? Well, maybe, but again, no one really cares.
Right.
Am I going to attract people that I wasn't sure that I would attract, whether it's a group or whatever that you're speaking to, okay, you made some new friends.
Yeah.
So I just think that, and the whole point, my idea of this podcast was just self-relating of how much doubt I have in my own head and what it takes to talk yourself out of that, what it takes for me to talk myself out of that. Like, I don't like something that the kids did and it's driving me crazy. It's like, why do they always do that? And I have to talk to myself and be like, who cares? Does it really matter that they left this around or whatnot? I have a beautiful family. I mean, can't I just be happy with that? And not everyone's going to do the things the way I do it. Does it mean that I should be mad at that? Can't I just, talk? And I have to talk myself into it. It's like, who cares? Just go pick it up and move on.
Right. I think all of us just have full conversations with ourselves, right? And
Guaranteed.
most of the time it's in the car and you're processing what you're going to say in a meeting or with a hard conversation with an employee, and you're ruminating on it, and you're spiraling. And part of figuring out how to get out of the spiral is recognizing you're in it. And a lot of times we don't even recognize we're in it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the hardest part, right? Because it's so easy to just critique and go after other people versus like figure out like what is wrong with me right now that I am just like not pleasant to anybody.
Right. And it might even be, if we were in an argument and, in my head, I've won this argument and I have all the right things to say. And then you have to talk yourself out of like, what's even the point? Is it even worth bringing up? It's just not worthy of the argument.
Right.
And talking yourself out of those, because again, the devil's going to want you to engage in that and bring up something that's so stupid and doesn't matter in the big picture, that you have to make a decision to let it go.
Right.
And I think that's a huge part of just letting things go, talking ourselves into letting things go instead of bringing things up for whatever reason.
Because what's the end goal? To win the argument or win the relationship back?
Yeah.
Right? Because you're stepping into, a hard territory if it sits in the argument versus like, what is my goal with this person? To be right or to be with them? Like, which one do I want? Right? And that's just part of life and relationships, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a business. It's all of those things we have to think about. And we have to acknowledge that everyone's inner voice is so different from ours, right? And everyone's insecurities and doubts and fears are so different from ours. But as leaders, we're often like, well, this is mine, and so they must have it too. And it's like, what you're afraid of might not be something I'm afraid of. Public speaking is something that was something you really had to work into, and it's something that I was always thrown into. It was like, oh, well, Sarah will present. And it was from my entire childhood. It was always in school, you will be the presenter. So it's not something I asked for, but it's something that just kind of came naturally. So talking is not a big deal to me in front of a group because I had to do it all the time. I never got to sit in the back of the classroom and not be called on. It was just the natural thing. But if you want me to go do business development with a bunch of strangers, no, not my jam.
Drudgery zone?
It's my drudgery zone. I'm great with meeting new people and engaging in conversation and building relationships, but getting them to give me work, no, it's just not something that I like. And I just feel like as soon as I'm told I have to go do that, my inner voice is like, you're never going to secure any work from these people. You're not good at this. This is not your gift. Like, go build a relationship, find out about their family, build a friendship with them. You're great at that. But like how you seal a deal, not your gift, right? Like, it really is not my thing. I can do it, but my insides are telling me like, run.
Right.
Run
so
for the
I
hills.
challenge you. No.
But that's the thing, right? Like, I would rather talk in front of 1,000 people than have to go ask people to give me work.
Yeah. I hear you on that.
It's not my thing. I don't like it.
I don't either, which is a problem for a small business, but we've done all right.
It's part of our everyday. But, that is just us being vulnerable and showing you that it doesn't matter who you are and what you do. Everyone has an inner voice of doubt and fear, and everyone's is different. And just once you, as a leader, can see that for yourself, you'll start to see it in others. And you'll start to see when they're hitting that, like, Heisman on you of like, no, back off. I don't want this. It's not, is that even the right word? Like,
yeah,
yeah, right. And they're building the wall, right? You can see when you push them to an area that causes them a real insecurity. And then as a leader, you have to kind of pull back in and go, I see this is making you uncomfortable. What can I do to help you take some baby steps into this? Because I think you'd be great at it.
Right.
Or let's just give it a try.
And on the other hand, thank God the people around us can't see what's going through our heads all the time.
Oh my God.
That would be really bad. Funny to watch from the audience, but bad to be part of.
Oh gosh, where did that come from? I get this like cartoon scroll, right? I don't want to know what's in your head. So I think, to wrap it up, it is just simple practices to slow down, recognize the voice that you are allowing to reside over yourself, the story you're telling yourself, and for everything you think is true, write down facts about it. And
good.
You might not find it to be true. You might find it to be something you're making up into the story that allows you to say no instead of maybe.
We appreciate that you decided to hang out and spend some time with us discussing life and leadership. It would mean the world to us if you would share this episode on social media to increase our online presence. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a minute to rate it and review it wherever you listen. Mahalo!